I was on Reddit the other day and I came across this thing called the third man factor, or the third man syndrome, and it really caught my eye. Um, Mainly because I've had my own experience with this, and I've tried telling people about it, but I always felt really strange. Like maybe there was something like a little off about me and my experience. Like it's just not something that normally I thought normally happened to people. I come to find out it's happened to a ton of people, and so here's my story. Um, Back in 2011, my mother-in-law was in hospice for lung cancer. I hadn't seen my wife for um, several weeks, and I was a little stressed out. I had a feeling that my mother-in-law wasn't doing very well, and this was just after Christmas, and just that whole Christmas was really bad. So we had a storm come in, and I had moved to Colorado from Minnesota for the skiing. Skiing was pretty much everything for me. I was an intern at a backcountry magazine back in the early 2000s. And yeah, I wanted to ski pretty much any day there was good snow. And I had a season pass for Loveland ski area. This is out in Colorado. And I knew some sections of the ski resort that it didn't matter if we had a storm 10, 5, 6 days earlier. I could find powder to go ski and just have a great time. And I almost always went by myself because I was a telemark skier, and snowboarders couldn't follow me where I was going, and a lot of alpine skiers wanted to go ski the bumps and that kind of stuff. And I just wasn't into that. I kind of like the low terrain, shots through the trees, and then you come out into a meadow. And we had a storm. It had dropped like about a foot and a half of fresh powder. But this was like at the end of February. And storms in the end of February, early March in Colorado drop really heavy, wet snow. It's not like that fluffy powder that you see in the magazines where the powder's flying over your head or anything like that. This stuff is not quite mashed potatoes, but it's a lot of work to get through. And I I decided to go up and ski. We had a good storm come in, big heavy snow. I was prepared to work, and I knew it would be a good day for me to go and get some exercise and kind of get the stress off my mind of my mother-in-law being so sick and not seeing my wife for so long. So I get up to Loveland, and this is the end of February, and I'm in my Honda Element, right? And that's a great car, right? You can pop the seat forward, jump in the back, change your shoes out. You can use it as a changing room. Nobody can really see you in there, so you can, it's a quite useful vehicle to have at a ski area. So I'm in the back, I'm getting dressed, and I call my wife, and I'm like, "Honey, I'm really stressed out. I need to go put some turns in." And she says, "Well, be careful because Mom's not doing well today." And I said, "Yeah, okay, I'll be careful." And put my stuff on, got on the lift, went up the chair, and this chair one. And there's a section between chair one and chair six that's they call the meadow, and there's some trees that empty down into there. And nobody really goes back there. It's so close to the first chair that you think it would get a lot of traffic, but you might as well be on the moon if you're back there. Like very few people do go back there, and that's kind of why I went back there, because it was like not a lot of snow and or not a lot of tracks, not a lot of people going through there. So I'm on the cat track, and there's this guy ahead of me, and I'm trying to catch up to him, see if we can ski together, and he just drops, and I'm like, all right, screw it, I'm not going to ski with him. So I sit there, I hang out for a minute, kind of get my head together, and I start down through the trees, and maybe make 10 turns, and I see this tree, and I caught an edge. I couldn't avoid hitting the tree, and I had this like recovery move that I would do in powder and other situations where I would tumble forward as kind of like a defensive maneuver. It always works well in open snow and whatnot, but for some reason I don't know why I did it when I was in the trees, and my skis caught in the snow, and I tumbled forward, and my skis released out of the snow, and now I'm upside down midair, and I hit the tree with my mid back, and I partially crushed 5 vertebrae, and went headfirst into a tree well, facing away from the tree. Now, this is after a storm with 1.5 feet of fresh powder on top of a bunch of other snow, and I'm in the tree well. So my head's basically at ground level, and my skis are above me, about 5 feet above me. I'm basically hung upside down in the tree well. I'm in a great deal of pain, but I'm like, but the pain didn't register yet. It hadn't really hit me yet. And I was just kind of hanging there. Like, I was like, ow, that kind of hurts. And I said to myself, well, I'm gonna call ski patrol. And I went to reach for my phone, and all of a sudden this voice came to me and started talking to me, and the voice said, you can't do that. Don't call ski patrol. You're not safe here. You can't stay here. And I'm like, and I start arguing with this voice, and I'm like, well, I know right where I'm at. I can tell them where I'm at. They're 5 minutes away. They can jump on the lift, come over and get me, find me, take me out of here. And the voice like yelling at me, like, you're not safe here. Don't stay here. You cannot stay here. You've got to get out of here. You're in, and I'm like, well, no, they can just find me right here. And the voice, kept going on. It's like, you have obligations. You cannot stay here. You have to leave. And, wow. And so I was like, all right, I sure, I just like, whatever you say. And I turned towards the tree because I was facing away from the tree. So I turned 180 degrees while I'm hanging upside down, and I started shimmying up the tree. So I'm hugging it, and I make my way up to where there's branches. Now the branches are about level where my skis are, but I was able to grab onto some branches. I pulled myself up to standing, and it was like the 4th of July, like just stars. That passed. It took a little bit, but that passed. And then I had to pee really, really bad, and that took about 10 minutes. It seems like where I hit my back, my kidneys are right there, and my kidneys just freaked out, and I had to go. So anyway, after that's all done, I'm looking at the meadow. This is like a place where they have like Sunday Easter service. They have a ton of people go over there, and I'm maybe 150 yards from there. I can see it. I could yell at somebody who's down there, and I'm like, I reach for my phone, and that voice just comes back, and everything it said to me before, it said to me again. You're not safe here. You can't stay here. You have to leave. You have to leave now. Started yelling, telling me you have obligations. I was like, holy shit. So I skied out. Now, because I was on telemark equipment, there's no bindings that release, so the skis were still attached to me. So basically, nothing to do there. I skied out, but I couldn't stand up because of the way my back was. So I did this thing called a turtle tuck, sort of. What you basically kind of lean forward and you put your hands on your knees, but you're like basically skiing on your feet, but you're supporting your weight through your shoulders, like down, like from your knees down. And I skied down to the first aid shack. That was like 1.5 miles from where I was, and the whole way down, screaming, cussing, swearing, because I'd had first aid training. I'd had extensive first aid training through the CDOT. I was a CDOT driver, and I knew that I was in shock, and I knew that my shock was only going to last so long, and I'd already been in shock for 20, 30 minutes at this point. And so I'm skiing down, and I'm screaming, cussing, swearing, yelling, and I get to the ski shack, and I kick my ski boots off, or not my ski boots. I kick the skis off, And I go into the shack, and this, here a little side note, I worked at a ski shop at the time, and I knew this one lady from the coffee shop, and she had brought her kid in to rent some skis, and they were in there because she had broken her nose, and I come in screaming, and they recognized me from 2 hours earlier at the ski shop. So they moved her, and they put me on a backboard and stabilized my neck and stabilized me. And I'm screaming, I'm absolutely just screaming. And they're like, got my phone, and they called my wife, and they're like, "Hey Kim, we've got your husband here. He's not dead." And I could hear her screaming through the phone that her mom had just died about 45 minutes earlier. I put the math together, and she basically died when I hit the tree. And if it wasn't for that conversation, they probably would have found me later in the spring. So when I hear these stories of people, mountaineers especially, having a voice come to them and help them through difficult situations, and I know many mountaineers from my time with a ski magazine, I can tell you it happens. And for me, I know, or at least I think I know who the voice was. So that's my third man story. The last 12 years, it's just been recovering from that. But I always felt like there was like this communication opened up between me and my mother-in-law. I never really was into the whole, I, I don't know. I don't have a lot of firm opinions about how that all works, but I always felt like there was some sort of like thing open between us after that happened, where she was part of me. She's still part of me. And yeah, I'm glad she came to me. I'm glad she helped me out with that. So anyway, that's my third man story. All right, have a good one.